Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a Right-on-Purpose author of eco-fiction and nonfiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely, Gaia is calling. And today's Gaia's Call is on the tipping points for change, how movements take root and regenerative futures can take hold. This is really about what neuroscience, networks, and real-world ripple effects can teach us about how 3.5% can shift the world. So let's dig into it. This is a true story that sparked a movement. Back in 2019, residents of the small French town of Ungersheim, I think is how you pronounce it, made global headlines. Facing the twin threats of climate change and economic instability, the town embarked on a radical experiment, transition to local resilience. With strong leadership and grassroots participation, they transformed their food system to rely on local, organic agriculture, drastically reduced energy usage through solar investment and building retrofits, and built up local employment by emphasizing sustainability and community well-being over GDP growth. The real-world shift, dubbed the Happy Degrowth, love that term, became a model for other communities across Europe. At first, the changes, they seemed modest. Planting school gardens, shifting to shared electric transport. But as more people joined in, a tipping point was reached. The town's entire culture and economy began to orbit around regeneration. What began with a few citizens pulling weeds and dreaming bigger became an international signal of possibility. A real-life demonstration that resilience doesn't have to wait for permission. It can begin in a backyard, a school, or a town square, wherever people gather to reimagine what's possible together. Ungersheim, again, excuse me if I'm butchering that name of the town, they showed us what it looks like when small groups lead with clarity, courage, and community. And the ripples they set in motion can reach around the world. So, what are social tipping points? In physics, a tipping point is that critical moment when an object in balance shifts and topples. In society, it's the moment when a once fringe idea suddenly becomes mainstream. According to Damon Centrola's research at the University of Pennsylvania, it takes just 25% of a group adopting a new behavior or belief to create a cascade of change. But it's not about virality or influencers. It's about complex contagions, ideas that require reinforcement, credibility, and social proof from multiple connections before they take root. Unlike a virus, a belief isn't caught just by seeing it once. We need to see it coming from people we trust, repeatedly, in different contexts, and that's what builds belief and tips a society. This is a quote from Centrola. For behaviors that require coordination, credibility, and legitimacy, change needs social reinforcement. It needs multiple exposures from multiple sources. This is a radical departure from the old myth of the single viral video or lone celebrity activist. Change doesn't flow from the center out. It radiates from the edges inward. via wide, redundant bridges in our social networks. So let's look at the role of grassroots movements. Let's be honest, big change rarely starts at the top. It usually starts in the school, hallway, a community kitchen, or an online comment thread. It starts with people who are fed up or lit up and willing to step up. Greta Thunberg didn't start with a UN speech. She started with a hand-painted sign and a refusal to attend schools on Fridays. And you can see the photo here if you happen to be on Substack. Rosa Parks didn't launch the civil rights movement from a stage. She sat down because she was tired of giving in. Grassroots movements work because they are embodied. They're rooted in place, in pain, and in urgency. And because they grow from real relationships, they have staying power. The Mothers Against Drunk Driving, that's MADD, M-A-D-D, movement began in grief, but its impact was seismic. In the 1980s, they changed not only laws, but attitudes, because they refused to stop telling their stories and organizing others to act. And that's the key. It's not just about what you do, it's about what you inspire others to do, too. Have you ever stood up for something at school or in your neighborhood and seen others follow your lead? Well, that's the ripple effect in action. So, what about early adopters and the power of the edge? One of the most powerful myths we can debunk is that change comes from the most connected, most charismatic, or most credentialed. Real change often starts on the periphery. Early adopters are those brave enough to go first, not because they want to be seen, but because they've seen something worth believing in. They live on the edge of existing norms, and it's from that edge that they can see new possibilities most clearly. In his book, Change, How to Make Things Happen, Centrola explains how change doesn't need influencers, it needs reinforcement. Wide bridges, not lone spotlights. In the climate world, this might look like this. A small town mayor starting a composting initiative, or a family deciding to convert their lawn into a food forest. Yes, that's us. That's what we're doing. Or a teacher rewriting the curriculum to include climate justice. I want to talk to that teacher. One action, a few followers, then many, then a shift. Let's face it, the first penguin to dive into the water might seem brave or foolish, but they're the ones who show the rest is safe to follow. So what about storytelling as a catalyst? Yeah, facts inform, but stories transform. Movements thrive when they're driven by story. Not just numbers, but narratives. Not just stats, but symbols. Why do we remember the story of stuff? And there's a link here to part of that on YouTube if you aren't familiar with the story of stuff. But why does Greta's lone strike stick with us? Because these stories are simple, human, and emotional. They don't just show us the problem, they invite us to be a part of the solution. You know, while the stories that make up the Zach Bates Eco-Adventure series didn't really happen, not exactly as they are in the book, they are based on true life events. And I remembered the positive impact fictional stories had on my life growing up, including and maybe even especially the Tom Swift Jr. series. But the only problem with Tom was he was only interested in techie gadgets, while my passion was, well, for animals. So I decided to reach today's kids who also love animals and, like me, want to believe in some magic by writing the kinds of stories I would want to read. So my question, what's your story, and who needs to hear it? Turning ripples into waves, the Green family responds. Let's ground this in our one cause companions. At first it was just an idea over dinner. Sarah and Daniel inviting a few neighbors to share a potluck and brainstorm ways to reduce single-use plastics in their community. What began as a casual conversation turned into a community-wide initiative to plant trees, share reusable alternatives, and co-create a local Zero Waste Week. Meanwhile, their daughter Emma noticed the mountains of styrofoam trays in her school's cafeteria and decided to speak up. She launched a petition, gathered over 200 signatures, and worked with her principal to pilot a reusable tray program. The cafeteria changed, but so did the conversation among students. Inspired by his sister, Lucas picked up his camera. He began filming short interviews with 10 local families who had made simple yet powerful shifts, such as composting, biking more, installing rain barrels. He stitched these stories together into a video project called Ripples of Change, which their town screened at the library. And it wasn't just the younger generation. Nancy and Robert, Emma's and Lucas's grandparents, they dusted off memories from their days in the civil rights and environmental justice movements. They shared these stories at the potluck gathering and in classrooms, reminding everyone that what seems small today can be the start of something far-reaching tomorrow. And their story is still unfolding, but together their family began and became a local tipping point, one ripple at a time. This is what tipping points look like in real life. Tiny shifts in many places that start to line up like dominoes, one by one, until the momentum becomes irresistible. So, what's your version of the Green family's ripple? How about sharing a small action you and your family are taking, or one you'd love to try, in the community chat? And again, if you're on Substack, there's a link here where you can join that chat. I'll be posting something there right after this is published. Reflection and action. What's one small but visible action you could take this week? Who are 3 people in your network who might join you? Is there a story or belief you could share to light a spark in someone else? Which of these questions speaks most to you? We'd love to hear your ripple story in the comments below. And yeah, there's a link if you're on Substack to leave a comment. Please do. Now, for the younger people. Eco Gardens Training Camp, your mini mission. The mission name? Operation Ripple Effect. The objective? Create a ripple, small, visible, and full of intention that demonstrates your commitment to a more regenerative world. Here's some ideas. Host a 1-hour Earth listening circle with friends or classmates. And if you want more information on how to do that, you can contact me. Post a 60-second Why I Care story on social media. Or write a letter to a local official or principal about one change you'd like to see. And then join an existing group or start your own. And here's a bonus challenge. Find 3 others to ripple with you. That's your personal 3.5% tipping point. Remember, you're not just waiting for change, you are the change. Thanks for reading One Cause. This post is public, so feel free to share it with other eco-conscious families ready to ripple small actions into big change. And coming soon, I promise, in our next chapter, we'll explore group flow in action. Remember, last week's was about flow, and I wanted to insert this one in preparation to look at group flow in action. How small circles of committed people, like Earth listening circles or virtual gatherings, can unlock regenerative potential far greater than the sum of their parts. Together, we become the tipping point. And this series, well, it's just the beginning. You can subscribe now so you don't miss the next One Flow chapter, Group Flow in Action. And again, yes, there's a link below to subscribe. And here's a picture from one of my favorite people in the world. This is my grandson, Logan, just a little bit over 4 years old, trying on Grandude, as he so affectionately calls me, and I love it, trying on my glasses. And this is something I ran across this week that called to me. I thought I'd share it. Love the whole world. When you realize the divine self within you, the Bhagavad Gita says, you are launched beyond superficial living like a missile. Your joy and your capacity to contribute to life are multiplied 1,000,000 times. To inspire us, the Buddha has given us, in one sentence, a model of ourselves as glorious, and yet as human as any we could ever desire. He says, love the whole world as a mother loves her child. Love like this will plunge us into deepest consciousness and release in us the power to make a lasting contribution to all of life. This is Brad Swift signing off one more day from Gaia's Calling. Take care.